Call to order the November 25th Emmitsburg Planning Commission meeting. Everybody rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everybody. Start with review and approval of the minutes from October 28th. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes?
Yeah. Thank you for doing them. I appreciate it. I had an agenda to do these because I injured myself and could not keyboard. Dale was not here last month.
Yeah, wasn't.
Other
My wife was sick.
than that, I don't say anything else.
I noticed that too.
Any other comments on the minutes? Did I get a motion to approve minus Dale?
So moved with the correction.
Second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. And Diane, do you want to speak now or do you want to speak later?
If I can speak after you guys.
Okay. All right. Moving on to the latest update to our 2025 comprehensive plan. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. So what you have in front of you are two chapters of the comprehensive plan, the community facilities chapter and the municipal growth chapter. Both are required components of the comprehensive plan. So the community facilities chapter, I can go over that first. It identifies the character of public and semi-public buildings, lands, and facilities. So it starts out with mentioning all the educational institutions in the area. So there's information about primary and secondary education from FCPS, higher education. It mentions the 3 public schools that serve Emmitsburg and their capacities. Also mentions Mother Seton School, the Mount, FCC, and even Hood College. There's information about recreation and civic resources, so parks and community park, Memorial Park, playgrounds in Silo Hill and Northgate, and the multi-user trails and Rainbow Lake. And then for civic spaces, the town office is mentioned, and so is the community center, the library, and the Seton Center. And we have a section regarding public safety services, which provides details about vigilant hosts, police protection and emergency communication. Healthcare facilities are mentioned, including the facility at the Mount. And then there's information regarding public assistance, such as the food bank, the Catoctin Pregnancy Center, and the Seton Center. And then there's a section on water and sewer infrastructure, since those are also public facilities. So towards the end of the chapter are the goals, objectives, and strategies that are listed. At the public workshops, there was a lot of discussions about the town partnering with the Mount to provide employment opportunities for students while offering services to the town. And the topic of childcare was mentioned several times. So that's why one of the goals that is being suggested is strengthen collaboration between local and educational institutions and the community, with the partnership with Mount Me being a strategy. And the other suggested goals include making sure that public safety and emergency services are adequate for future growth. And since this chapter also mentions parks and recreational facilities, we decided to add a goal regarding protecting green spaces. And then we have another goal that addresses providing support for vulnerable population by expanding community services. And lastly, another goal is to ensure sustainable and efficient water system is in place to accommodate future growth. So that's an overview of the community facilities chapter. I can go over the next one too, or we can comment on this first and then move on to the second. It's up to
Sure.
you.
Yeah, we can comment on community facilities first. Does anybody have any comments on this particular section 8?
Yes, I do. I got a couple questions. How do you how you know that half of Lewistown Elementary goes to Thermont Middle School?
Oh, FCPS publishes these reports and,
Well, what half? I was just curious.
oh,
You don't know, really?
I don't know, I guess,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wonder how you've come up with that. And on the page 2, Mother Seton, it would be nice if we knew what their capacity was and whether they're close to capacity or not. So we can, and I'm sure they like to have an idea where we think the town's going so that they could plan, just like the public school. Okay? Just a suggestion. And there's one word misspelled on page 4. You got ANA, and I'm sure that meant to be and instead of ANA. Okay? And underneath civic spaces. Did you find it? It's on the 4th line up from the bottom, in the middle of the line.
Yep.
See it? Okay. I just thought that was interesting. Let's see, there was something else. I went through this twice, and then I didn't mark everything. Hold on. Damn it. Getting aggravated here. I know there's one more. Oh, I'm going to the next section. All
We
right.
haven't gotten that yet.
What?
We haven't
Yeah, we're
done that
just
yet.
in
We're doing chapter 8 right
Oh, we're
now.
just chapter 8.
Yeah, we'll move on. to that in a
There was
second.
one other item there. I had 4. Oh, under page 8, you've got wastewater system. You're saying got a treatment capacity of 750,000 gallons. Now, we're only using half the sewer system. Is that for that amount or is that for the whole sewer system? Do you know?
I believe that's the whole sewer system.
Because half the system has never been put in operation yet.
Right, yeah. So,
So I'm wondering what that stands for, whether it's the whole system or not.
That's the whole
That
system.
is the whole system.
That's the
yeah.
whole system.
It's the whole system.
Mhm.
So you really only got 375,000 or 375,000 gallon because the other half of the system is not operational because there's been
Yes.
a lot of parts stolen for that system when the
No.
previous superintendent was there. So it would take a lot of extra money and effort to get that other half going.
Wait a minute, Dale.
What's that?
No, that the system operates 100% daily.
You're wrong.
No, because of the amount of wild water we have, that's why that plant's so hot.
Half that system is not being used.
No,
And I'm going based on somebody that works on it every day.
well, I know they need that capacity to run that system daily.
It's not operational.
Okay.
I'll double check it.
Okay, because that's why we have so much wild water in our system. That's why that system's that large.
Yeah, wild water is ready in this town,
Mhm.
just like Thermont.
Which is half of our capacity, if not more.
Okay, that's all I had.
Anybody else have comments on
I-
8?
I have one question on it. Relate more to the water. Is it worth noting that the town and Mount St. Mary's has a line between them? bi-directional line, but typically only comes one way, but
Yeah,
that line does exist. Not intended for capacity, but it is there for as needed, if needed for emergencies.
I can add that information.
Okay.
yeah,
That's
we're
all.
authorized to have 100,000 gallons a month if we want it.
Daily, 100,000
A day?
a day. And then if you need more than that, we have to call them.
That sounds like a little more than necessary.
They don't take that much out of it, but that is what it's authorized.
Well, I know it's shut off right now because of their forever
Right.
chemicals or ingredients or whatever you want to call them.
But that agreement goes another 15 plus years, give or take. There's an agreement now that exists. It's got about 15 years of life left to it, 15 or 20 years of life.
I'm not sure. I can check that for you. Yeah.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Diane?
Hello, Diane Walbrucker, 535 West Main Street, Emmitsburg. I did want to point out that I guess now's a good time to do it as any. I pulled together a summary of key points, and did you put those on each? Okay. So what I did is I've noted when I've worked with towns across the country that people won't come to a meeting and they will not read a 100-page plan.
Oh.
Duh. So what I did was I pulled together a summary of the key points. It's a 1-page introductory letter with a table of contents. And then for each of the chapters, I just took the first paragraph of each chapter, put it at the top of the page, and then included the vision goals. Well, I included the visions in the first chapter, chapter 2. And then for the rest of the chapters, I put the goals, objectives, and strategies. So in other words, I just copied that table and put it in there because I think those are the things that people can wrap their hands around and would be interested in seeing for the future. Did you get it?
For clarification, this is the document you're talking about
Yes.
you created.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And I put page numbers on it and I called it, summary of goals, objectives, and strategies for public comments. So I think I sent it to all of you guys on Friday, right? All of you guys
I see.
well, I didn't know you were on the board. I got to add you to the list. But I sent it to all you guys, and Jim, I don't think I had. Did you get it? Okay. Okay, good. So all I need to do is add Tim. But anyway, I sent it to you guys just to say, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Do you have any suggestions? What do you want? I haven't sent it to the other team of people, one of whom's here, Eric, who had been helping before with reaching out to the public and to our institutions. But if you guys like this idea, then I will reach out to them as well. And my intent with this is to go to organizations. Like today, I had a meeting with Mother Seton School, MSM. Anyway, and we were talking about, some things that I needed to get from them for the Lions Club, but I brought this up and I asked her to pay special attention to Section 8. So when Dale said that he didn't have the figures on the population and stuff, I can just call her up and get those really easily for capacity. Now, I know they're building and they're planning on coming to the Planning Commission with a chapel and they're extending their building. So that's already something that I was unaware of, and I didn't know if the Planning Commission, you guys may already be aware of that. But it's important to have them involved in the conversation about where we're going over the next 10 to 20 years, because they're going to be impacted by it. And they may in turn impact it by saying, we hope to grow by 50% over the next 20 years. I did meet with Amber Madigan at the elementary school, but I didn't have this document finished yet, so I'll send it to her later. And I was up talking to Vince Hodge today at the National Emergency Training Center. And I asked him if he had met with you, Najila, or Frank, and he said he hadn't about the comprehensive plan. So I don't want to step on any toes. If you guys want to do it, that's fine. Or I can do it. But I think it's really important to get this information out to people and to meet them where they are instead of having them come here. I'm even willing to sit at Jubilee for a Sunday morning and just sit out there and ask people, have a little sign or something and ask people what they think and really try to get some more information. Some of the overall comments I had about these were about things like how we penalize owners of blighted buildings and things like what we did with Fraley's. I mean, they had to maintain their property because it was declared a hazardous building. And I know that because I was the person who came down here and made sure that happened. But we penalized them and they are now taking care of the property or at least mowing it. So it doesn't become hazardous anymore. So I don't know how far along you guys are on some of these issues, but looking through like getting people interested in partnering with Mount St. Mary's University. Mother Seton School has a program where they have interns come from Mount St. Mary's University and work in their school. So if we're talking about partnering with the schools and Mount St. Mary's, we've already got one that's ongoing that has been for a while that I don't know if we knew about. So going out to the community and showing them this and asking them questions, I think really helps. So anyway, do you guys like the idea? Do you have suggestions? Anyway, I'm open to comments and feedback.
I like the bulk of what you're suggesting. So being the new guy, for clarification, what I'm looking for is a couple things, like the level of detail we intend to include in community facilities. Like, for example, what's not there? The disc golf course I didn't see mentioned as a community park amenity unless I missed it. But if we're, it seemed like we tried to grocery list everything that we had. So if we could add that, if it fits what we're trying to achieve, then I would suggest we do add that. Regarding anchor institutions, we talk about education going on, but we don't mention here, and this is why I don't know if this is the right spot, the National Fire Academy, NETC, and the FEMA facility in general as an anchor institution, and therefore someone with whom we want to interact very openly. And I know from other experiences here that they've been very siloed and not forthcoming because there's a dynamic over there regarding careers and priorities and funding that they have to manage. But I don't want us to exclude them because I feel there's opportunity that could come along that we would want to include among our goals to support their growth. And also, if we're open to supporting them, all of them, maybe that helps them with their remaining here, as they might be viewed as redundant. And we want to avoid that because they're an anchor institution, they're a big employer, and they are a contributor to our local economy. Another question, again, sort of a philosophical one, is we talk about the schools in a very polite and neutral tone. I know we've had consistent feedback over at least 10 years seeking change at Emmitsburg Elementary and at Catoctin High School to improve their physical plan, to build a high school new that has windows as opposed to the holding facility they have, and to have walls in a new elementary school or built into this elementary school for safety purposes and for the purpose of better baseline instruction as opposed to a school without walls. So those are criticisms. Do we place those in a more polite diplomatic language in this as goals we would like to see there, if that aligns with the board's intent? I would hope it would, but is that something that fits this part of the comp plan, or is there a better place for it, or has it already been broached? Because I don't want us to be redundant in what we're doing.
Oh, no, it hasn't been mentioned anywhere else, but we
Okay.
can put it there, like you said, in a diplomatic way, if that's the direction you wanna.
Sure. I would hope, I would lobby to the board that Commissioner Burns was very adamant about the feedback he received about the elementary school. And I believe Mayor Davis and Commissioner Davis was on board with that. The idea that we want to see the school be as much of a flagship as possible. And we also want the Catoctin High School, and I've gotten a lot of feedback about the Catoctin High School, about its physical structure is limiting to kids because there are virtually no windows in any classrooms. And that sends a very clear message when they visit these other schools that are, again, full of windows, full of light, full of, a lot more energy. And as a guy who's in a classroom all the time, I don't enjoy teaching a classroom that has no windows. I do completely prefer, the window thing. And I know that sounds sort of petty, window, but the reality is our kids come away from their experience at Catoctin High School after visiting other schools and games, competitions, other events, feeling second class because the structure is not conducive to its goal, and that's education. And the kids feel that, and they really feel that, like, hey, they get good stuff, not us. And I really want that to be part of this if it fits somewhere, because I think it needs to be included. With FEMA and the facilities at FEMA, the schools at FEMA, very much their anchor institutions. We really want to encourage them. We want to do anything we can that's within our boundary to encourage them to be successful. And that's true with the schools. I mean, that's kind of where I'm going on that one. Some specific things. I hit on the disc golf thing. I'm sorry I'm mentioning trails. I like what you wrote for trails. I would make a tweak what we talk about for fishing and hunting. In the very last line, second to last, it midpoint says, I'm on page 4. Mid-sentence, it says, enhancing the range of outdoor experiences available to visitors. I would hope we would say to the community and visitors, with us as a priority. We certainly want heads and beds and visitors, and certainly, we want people to come and spend money. But my hope is these things are for the community first, as well as our broader community. Where are we? The library piece, I'm on page 5, Emmitsburg Branch Library. I'll be a nerd. I'm sure Ms. Walbrecker will get on me about trying to be a grammarian. I would drop a bunch of ands there in popular films and audiobooks and the latest issues of magazines and local newspapers, and just put commas there and save the ands. Just knock them out. Just, fewer words. The other piece is the services in the library are listed as for card holders. And I think any visitor has access to them. And I think they would be like vehement about saying, let's just say for visitors or for the community again. I don't know, but I would drop for card holders. Where are we? Jumping a little further along. And I'm on page 6 at the top of the page, police protection, and comparing it to emergency communication. Would we consider modifying that at the opening line to say the Frederick County Sheriff's Office or something similar, or FCSO? In a similar way, they were saying the Frederick County Department of Emergency Communications. Sort of just start it with the formal name and move away from there. For our health facilities and services, there is Dr. Thomas who practices in town, and she has an addiction practice as well as a internal medicine practice, I believe. I know she has a more formal name for her practice, and maybe we would include that practice, perhaps. And then where page 7, I'm on the Emmitsburg Food Bank section. Number 1 is brilliant. We have that, so thank you for doing that. This, a second sentence, a second line for second sentence. This organization plays a crucial role in addressing hunger and food insecurity by collecting and distributing, adding and distributing surplus food from various sources. So they don't just collect, but also they get it out to folks and make it available to folks. I'm running out of steam, I promise. Okay. Page 9. Number 1 under goals, strengthen collaboration between local educational institutions, plural, and the community. And I think that institution singular versus plural pops somewhere else, and I don't remember where I marked it, I'm sorry. And at that, I'll be quiet on section 8. But I'm going for very low hanging little niggling things that are tiny. So I thought this is pretty sharp overall, very sharp overall.
Thank you.
Anybody else on 8? Yes, Stan.
Yeah, I have one other thing I just realized. Oh, go ahead.
Go.
Dave. Under
Uh,
Public assistance, could we also include Seton Village? It's sorry. Seton Village. That's public assistance through the federal government. And it's for only people 62 or older. Somebody coming in the community might want to apply. I just now thought about it.
Do you want that under public assistance or?
We get subsidized rent to the federal government. And you have to be 62 or older, of course.
I think it was mentioned in the housing part, though, if memory serves.
Where?
I think it's mentioned in the housing chapter, chapter 3 or 4. I forgot what chapter it is now, off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think I have to double check, but
It's probably viable to
Yeah.
put it in at public
Go ahead.
assistance as well, too, yeah.
okay.
Okay, ready for me now?
Sure.
Under private institutions, should we include Chestertown Academy in there? Chestertown Academy is, I know, is still low enrollment, but it's basically kids from outside, for kids from the Mother Seton. That's where, if they want to stay Catholic, they're going to go in there to high school. And I know their current enrollment is only like 30 students, something like that, but 10, 20 years from now, hopefully it'll increase.
Is that the homeschooling program?
Pardon? No, Chesterton
No.
Academy, their present location is over at Creamy Road.
Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's the homeschooling program that's evolved into sort of a nascent high school. So they do have on-site, that they use a Creamery Road space for classes.
Right.
I don't know how frequently they meet. I don't know if I was under the impression they rotate through for different lessons. So I don't know if a student's there all day, but it is definitely, I would say definitely worth mentioning as part of the infrastructure, because yeah, it definitely is gonna, it has the potential for snowballing. Because there is a need.
This is
for
a
it.
high school for the Catholic then.
Yeah,
Correct.
I mean, it's small right now. That they're, as I recall from their hearing, there were like 30 students, something like that, and the BOA approved them. And when they planned, we're operating out of St. Joseph's, but they got too big for that supposedly. So they were actually supposed to be up at St. Anthony's for a little while too. Memory serves.
That's where they started, I thought.
Yeah, so then last year they came in for an exception for going Creamy Road, which runs out this next month, memory serves.
Good. Are we good?
That's all I have.
Right. Let's move along to.
Eric got
Oh, Eric,
something.
yep. Mhm.
Eric Soder, Pembroke Court. Just while on this chapter, I just wanted to carry on what Commissioner O'Donnell noted about the schools.
and I'd be happy to dig it up and send it over to Najila and help insert it. But particularly with the elementary school, there was a limited renovation study done for all the North County elementary schools, like in 20 or 21. And it probably would be good to insert that a little bit more detail in here. And I just know because I've talked to FCPS, Federal County Public Schools, about it. And just to give some example, Thurmont had a, because they did the studies for all the North County elementaries. When Thurmont project got pulled, it was around 8 to 10 million. So it was a reasonable, for today's costs. And obviously it fixed some of those issues that Commissioner O'Donnell noted about, but also added some modest capacity. And obviously that's what we also need in town too. So I will grab that if you guys don't mind and help insert that in there, because I think it's important to kind of note that, because if it's a project also that if future development comes in, they could participate in it, since it is a modest, it's a modest amount. And certainly, combining using the impact fees that would come into the county and perhaps any other additional fees that may come into the town, those things could actually come to fruition. So just wanted to note that and put some more meat on the bone, so to speak.
Perfect. All right. Chapter 9, municipal growth.
So the municipal growth chapter is another state required element of the comprehensive plan. It analyzes land use demands and potential effects on public facilities due to projected population growth. So in this chapter, we use the baseline data from 2020 decennial census. So it uses a population of 2,770 and a household size of 2.7 based on the number of households of 1,042 from the 2020 decennial census. Obviously this number is different as of 2024, but for projection purposes, we decided to go with the baseline. So a linear model was applied to project the population growth through the year 2040, so that the projected population growth is 8.43%, just on the first, excuse me. So the first figure on page 2. So the population growth of 8.43%, resulting in 3,004 people, and 7.77%, resulting in 3,237 people in between 2030 to 2040. And then there's discussion about development density, which is the number of housing units that can be accommodated per acre within each zoning district. And that calculation uses what it's called a zoning yield factor to reflect the number of homes per acre that would actually be built. So the Maryland Department of Planning, they assume a yield factor of 75% of the maximum density for residential zoning. So we did the calculations of residential lots within the town limits and within the proposed growth boundary area. Took 43,560 square feet, which is 1 acre, divided that by the minimum lot size allowed in the town code, and obtained the allowable density of, or the number of dwelling units per acre. And then we multiplied that by 0.75 because we're assuming a yield factor of 75%. So the numbers you see on in the table 9.1, and then those are the allowable density or density yield. And then the second table, 9.2, which includes all the properties within town limits and suggested growth boundary and their allowable number of properties within town limits. And that amounts to 1,474 units. And with the household size of 2.7 and the population capacity is 3,980. So if you add that to the baseline population of 2,770, then it's 6,750 people, which is what should be displayed in figure 9.2. I provided the corrected graph this evening. So instead of 3,980, it should say 6,750. So obviously that's much higher than the projected population growth of 3,237. Then we have the development pipeline in table 9.3, which is on page 5. So this is what we're anticipating for the next 5 to 7 years if things go well. And that would add about 1,280 people to the town's population. And if you add that to the base population, 2,770, then that's 4,050 people. So that's just like a projection and an estimate of how many people or the population based on residential development. So obviously this increase will have an impact on the community facilities, and the town should be planning accordingly. So we'll have to coordinate it with FCPS, and we kind of touched on that. And then water capacity would have to be increased. And if you look at page or table 9.4 on page 6, you'll see that the number of taps that the town currently has isn't enough for the residential development pipeline presented in table 9.3. So we'd be short by 272 taps. But we have adequate taps or sewer taps, even with the possible number of units within the town growth area, we'll have enough sewer taps. But it's really important that the town takes steps towards increasing water taps to support the potential development. And the next section talks about school capacity and the projected enrollment from the Board of Education's Educational Facilities Master Plan from 2022 and the 2024 enrollment report. It's mentioned because in the context of residential development, because growth in housing will lead to an influx of families and school children. So it'll be important to work with FCPS to find potential solutions. And then there's a section regarding parks and recreation. It mentions that the park land requirements in the town code, which assumes a household size of 2.67 individuals per unit and requires 0.010 acres of parkland per individual residing in a development. So so that's the parkland section, and we're still working on the other community facilities or expansion of other community facilities.
Do we not have a goals and strategy section for 9?
No, because it's still like it's not done yet. The last section is still under. Yeah.
So there will be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Want me to start?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, page 4. It looks like you duplicated there. You got a 66.24 twice. And then reference number is the same, property ID. So it looks like it's duplicated. Is that possible?
Yes, that's very much possible. Yeah. Thanks for
So we
bringing
got
that up.
309 more units or less.
Right.
So it should only be 1,000. So, all right. That's something I noticed. All right. I think it's something else. Oh, what's on page 7, you have Emmett Gardens Water Treatment Plant. We're putting a water treatment plant in Emmett Gardens?
Um, so that's a treatment plan that we intend to work on in the future if funding becomes available.
Definitely putting one down in Emmett Gardens.
I mean, it's not set in stone yet, but it's something we're exploring.
Okay, I never heard of it, so I just thought I'd ask.
That's that well, there's a well down there that would need to be treated, and that's what it'd be for that one well. It wouldn't be like what you see up on the mountain.
Is that well 7 or well J?
No, it'd be 7. It's not J. J's down in the park.
7. J doesn't work, huh? All right. Yeah, you show reservoir 1, 2, and wells J and 7. So that's 7. All right. So that's why we're putting it down there. All right.
You know, just to grab that well that has better water than J.
But that's in the future.
Right.
Okay. Guess that's all I got right now.
Is commercial land for development in another section or,
All right, this only covers residential.
Right.
Yeah.
but commercials covered elsewhere?
Not in this way. But we can add a section regarding that, yeah. If that's what you would like to see in the comp plan.
I think it'd be nice to know what kind of commercial development the town would be interested in or looking for or projecting possibly.
Diane?
Diane Walbrecker again. Just had a question when you were talking about the population densities and the development yield on the properties. If you look at some of the goals and objectives and strategies in some of the earlier chapters, you talk about using innovative, creative zoning that would include the ability to do mixed use zoning. And I didn't see any mixed use zoning in the projections of, 5 to 10 to 20 years out. And if we're talking about doing that kind of interesting thing, I just didn't know if Maryland or APA had any sort of yields on that kind of innovative kind of housing. So it's something to consider. Because really all these goals and objectives fit in. And I think there's some discussion of the commercial properties and stuff in the chapter on economic and fiscal health. I
Okay.
think I remember seeing it there.
But the commercial would also help with what you just asked about, was the mixed use.
Right,
Because
right,
without the commercial, there's not going to be any.
right,
It's going to be housing.
right. And yeah,
Diane,
thank you.
Mike,
Sheila, is there any,
You don't want to capture all the comments I have back here. And Eric, me and Eric are going to be talking.
oh,
is there anything in the goals and strategies related to zoning overlays or anything of the innovative zoning type?
For this
We don't see
chapter,
we don't see that in 9 right now. The goals and strategies section is not in 9. Is anything in there going to reflect what Diane just talked about in terms of like innovative
I
density?
can add language to address that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I'm worried as the new guy, I'm being redundant, so I'm going to try not to be redundant. I'm starting on page 1, section 9. When we talk about our baseline data for population, is it assumed in the planning community that the effect of COVID upon the census kind of knocked the numbers down? And in our community, I feel that we didn't really represent the full robust nature of the population, and that the university was virtually absent. And in the workshops that the Census Bureau ran, the question came up, I asked, do you count the students despite the fact they live outside of the community full time? They live here as well. They said, yes. I said, do they count in both places? And they said, yes. So the students weren't here, and that's a chunk of the population that's not represented in this 2770 number. And the piece I'm going to, again, is that commercial side is retail follows rooftops. Yeah, but retail also follows population. So if we want to enhance retail and that mixed use piece, if we acknowledge that maybe this was an excellent, excellent number in the circumstance, it might not represent the actual strength of the number. Something to acknowledge that the numbers aren't, it might not be as accurate as we would hope. Moving from there, talking about the density piece. In viewing what's been taking place in Frederick City, way back when with Urbana, Middletown, and definitely Brunswick now, they're going vertical. They're having taller structures, and they're siting them in a way that is sensitive to the view shed, and they're siting them in a way that's sensitive to their gateways. But at the same time, they're doing it. And I don't know if we are including any vertical limits when we talk about our density for our high density residential. So, and if we're not, maybe that's something that we consider at a future time. Not looking for a definitive answer. I'm just trying to figure out if that pieces into what we're thinking about. And the reason I go to that is the great urban planner, Chris Jakubiak, a long time ago, very strongly emphasized that we protect our gateways and we protect our view shed. And I think when we talk about the potential of adding annexing properties into the town, I think it's a great idea. But if they go with like a super density and a verticality that limits the view shed, there's a risk there depending on where it's sited. So I hope we can have some non-arbitrary method of saying, yeah, tall is good here, tall is not good there, sort of defining where it would be best. Jumping over from there, sorry, trying to be quick. Again, maybe we put some language in just to reiterate the point of new schools, new schools, new schools. And maybe we ask our board or the commission about actually designating a growth site or a placement site for the new Emmitsburg Elementary. Like at one point in time, they're going to have to tear it down. And if we were to pre-designate a dotted line saying, we'd like to see it here, then maybe it will be here or closer to here. But I don't know if that's our decision to encourage on a map or the boards or from us to them. But I think that's a conversation that hopefully we can have as part of our institutional knowledge here. For park and recreation, I am very enthusiastic about the idea of each neighborhood having a neighborhood park so people can meet and greet there. Few things break barriers than little kids interacting and dogs. But the other piece is, I don't know if we want to push for circuit trails as part of that. Like, this is something that we do want to see. When a developer had proposed growth at the Fraley tract last time, they were encouraged to and came forward with what I thought was a very solid design that included, I think it was a 12-foot wide paved walking circuit of the neighborhood. And I think that would add tremendous value and enhance quality of life here globally. So I don't know if we can put that in here, but if we can some way encourage that, I think that would be good. And that's it for what I got there. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments on 9?
I want to make one remark.
Mhm.
Don't take it negative, but I was born and raised in this county and went to that school or this school, 12 years. And being in the northern part of the county, we were always shortchanged on facilities, classes, everything. That's just the way it was. So don't expect the Board of Education to give us what we would like to have and what we're entitled to, okay? It's always been that way. You're lucky you got this building to use. You are.
So I think that probably furthers the point of being more specific about our wants and needs and desires as a community so that it's very clear to the rest of the county that, you know, we do have ideas here that we would like to see fulfilled along with the rest of the county. So,
Right. And the municipal growth section, it would have to be, you know, we'll have to consult the county on it too and work with them. So
Mhm.
it'll be an ongoing process.
yeah.
Again, Eric Soder, Pembroke Court, just on the density yield calculations, and this is something that Najila and I had talked about just in developing municipal growth elements and prior experience. And one thing that may help on the tables, you know, there's the allowable density, and that's, you know, what's permitted, you know, just using the raw raw numbers. And the second column really is more of a likely density and not necessarily allowable. So that's my only suggestion, is consider that. And what we've had discussions with are just industry practice in terms of, you know, there's usually a factor 75% of the gross tract to maybe 85 to 90%, depending on what type of piece of land it is. And then you multiply that by your general density. So the likely is obviously what's more likely to occur, but it just depends on the tract. If the tract's flat, if there's not a lot of floodplain, if there's other, you know, situations, you can yield more if you introduce townhomes and, you know, can build some yield out of that. So that's my only suggestion, is kind of distinguish between the two, particularly on table 9.1 and a couple other places. Like the allowable density is one, and the other one is more like a likely density, just to give a comfort level of what's going to happen there. And then the other thing that we talked about is, and maybe I think it's going to be important to put in here, just knowing Maryland Department of Planning, and I can certainly send some language for everyone to consider, is just the fact that particularly with annexations, you're going to want to at least have a yield that meets the state priority funding area PFA guidelines. Those that deal with, you know, the state all the time, and over the years, you know, they've been becoming more and more difficult with the PFA law, and that's really where you get your money for things like water, wastewater, schools, and things like that. So the more land that is in and meets PFA requirements in a municipality or county, the better. So just a statement in that regard that would note that you would encourage, when there is annexation, to at least have a minimum that would meet PFA requirements, something to that effect. So I'll send some comments along for everyone to consider. Thank you.
So in terms of this last column in the density yield calculation table 9.1 on page 3, what language what wording should we put in this last column that makes it more makes it easier to understand that that's not necessarily an allowable density, but more of like a, this is what happens in the real world type of thing?
Do we want to say something along the lines of aligning the density yield with the priority funding area standard? Does that meet what you're asking?
I was thinking more of like likely density yield, or
Okay, yeah.
something to the effect of
Real world versus ideal world.
yeah,
Okay.
one is what is allowed to happen and the other is what will really happen.
Okay.
But there's probably a more sophisticated word for that. in terms of the PFA part of it, should that be a different paragraph or another section in here to talk about?
We can do a different section just for the PFA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if the goal for the PFA is to align with state standards with the intent of seeing funding for X, Y, Z, maybe that's how we kind of frame it. Saying, you know, our goals are, you know, improved education, water services, wastewater treatment. I don't know if there's any infrastructure beyond that that we want to chase down, but that's where I'm not the expert. So,
Whereas Emmitsburg would align with the requirements of the PFA to fully utilize the, again, words.
Can we have a
Allowable
footnote of what PFAA?
Yeah, we probably should have an expert.
Because the average person doesn't have an idea and I don't have an idea either. Oh, Knew this,
All right. Yeah, I can add more information, clarify what PFA is or priority
maybe
funding.
some kind of
areas.
footnote what it
Okay.
stands for.
All right.
Stands,
There's a map too, right?
And a map. Okay.
so the basic idea is the state makes money available more easily to priority funding areas for their infrastructure. That's sort of the simpler version, but there are layers one has to go through to qualify for that. And it ties into your development density. And I don't know if they're using the term smart growth anymore at the state level, but if you have infrastructure within a municipality at the state, if I understand it correctly, they want to encourage the growth to be in that municipal area in order to have less greenfield change, like, you know, less growth outside of your municipality.
you gotta meet their requirements, in
Right.
other words.
Concentrate it where it already is and up your density, and they will reward you with making funds available more easily to access for your sewer plant, your wastewater treatment plant, for building or enhancing your schools. And there's more to it, but does that fit
Yeah.
the big picture, I think?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't like the idea of septic tanks, right?
Yes. They lean away from that, if I'm not mistaken. Me, I'm okay with. On a personal note. So,
Okay, does anybody else have anything on 9? Okay. And in terms of this, the document that Diane put together, thank you for doing this, by the way, and thank you for helping to get the word out to folks in the community about the comprehensive plan. Do we want to give any feedback right now, so that Diane has more direction on what she's proposing to do?
I'd like to read it. So I'm kind of
Okay, yeah, that's, yeah,
muscled.
Need to
Enjoy it.
digest a little more.
okay, yeah, how about, we allow folks to read it and then what, via email respond?
Sure.
Okay.
And do we respond to you or to?
Well, there was an
the dealer or to-
email
Okay,
that Diane will probably have to put you on.
okay.
Uh,
Right.
Okay.
I'll forward that email to you right now.
Thank you. That's right.emmitsburg@gmail again. I don't know why they kicked me off the Emmitsburg MD one, but you know.
All right, does anybody have anything else to talk about? All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moves.
I second it.
All right, we are adjourned.
Okay.